Welcome everybody to the Giver Method channel. My name is Jake and I'm so glad that you were able to join me. Now today we're going to be talking about how you can reignite your desire when you've been feeling numb, maybe overwhelmed, exhausted, or even disconnected from who you are or the impact that you want to make. For a long time, I didn't want anything. I felt so numb. Like there were no goals, there were no dreams, not even the stuff that used to light me up. I just didn't want any of it. And honestly, I thought that like the passion, the desire, had just left me for good. And that happens to a lot of us, right? You've likely been there. I mean, we all end up in those places as parents, as entrepreneurs, as people working for organizations. Like there's so many different things and demands that we have to get to that, it just starts to make us feel that overwhelmed, disconnect, and that numbness. But, here's what I learned. Desires don't disappear. They don't go like just disappear completely. They just get buried under the survival mode. And with the right approach, it can come back to life. I thought being numb back then, you may have felt this as well. Like that it meant that I was like ungrateful or worse, even like that something was broken. I mean, I had the family, I had the jobs, I had, stability. I was checking all the boxes. On paper, I should have felt absolutely amazing. But instead, we feel nothing, right? It's just flat. Like every part of life is muted under the same dull grayness. And what I realized is that numbness, that wasn't a flaw of any kind. It's your nervous system saying, hey, things have been a bit too much for too long, so I'm just going to shut down some areas, some feelings, until it's safe again to come out. And once again, it's a protection. It's that survival mode. It's not a punishment. And so today, I want to talk about how you reignite that desire when you feel numb, and what to do when you don't even know what you want anymore after that survival mode has been in place for so long. And let me ask you a few questions that might frame this up. Like, have you ever felt like a life was just existing? Like I'm just here, rather than I'm living it. I'm just going through the motions without any genuine excitement about anything. Or maybe you've been in caretaker mode for so long that you've completely forgotten what you've actually enjoyed beyond making sure everyone else's needs are completely met. Or perhaps you find yourself thinking like, I should be grateful for the life that I have, while secretly feeling that emotional flatness, that disconnection from the things that used to matter to you. If that resonates with you, once again, there's nothing wrong. It's not, there's no ungratefulness there. It's not selfish to want to feel alive again. You're definitely not permanently damaged in any way. You're experiencing this the emotional hibernation that comes with survival mode. That's your nervous system has intelligently shut down all the non-essential emotional responses to protect you from the overwhelm. I mean, that's what that looks like. Now, we're going to be diving deep into this topic today, and it's all going to be grounded in principles from the GIVER method. So let me actually just introduce myself. My name is Jake Talbert. I'm the founder. I'm the author of this book called The GIVER Method, which everything will be grounded in today. This book came out in November. Since coming out, it's been an Amazon bestseller. Right now, it's available. You can get it for as little as $2 on Amazon. So you can find the link to go get it down in the description. You can also just pause this video, open up your Amazon app, and go find The GIVER Method by Jake Talbert. I highly recommend you get this. It is meant for, because it's grounded in my story and the path I've walked down. It's meant for people like you, for parents, for entrepreneurs, for people who are working in those working in large organizations. Like I've been there. I have 3 kids. I'm an entrepreneur, and I've worked in that sea of cubicles in the corporate life. And so everything, the exercises, action items, everything is designed to fit into your life so that you can rediscover your gifts and superpowers, find those passions, create more impact and influence in the world, have better relationships, live a more fulfilled life, have more, happiness come to you. So this is the best $2 you could invest in yourself, is getting yourself access to the book. And so go to Amazon, get yourself a copy. Like I said, the link will be down below. But once again, everything's going to be covered in, everything's grounded in the principles from here. Now, after I went through a season of that emotional shutdown, I discovered that passion doesn't need to feel forced. It just needs to feel safe to return back into your life. And there's tons of data out there that backs this. I love there was this UCLA research that was done that shows that when people practice small, safe experiments of with more feeling, especially when it's grounded in their gifts and superpowers, their neural connections start forming in as little as 21 to 30 days, meaning your system can wake back up so fast if you just approach it gently rather than trying to shock the system. And so in today's video, I'm going to walk you through this, how you gently reawaken yourself as a part of that. So there's going to be 6 specific strategies or areas that we're going to focus on, designed for parents, for entrepreneurs, for employees to slowly reconnect with what they want and notice those sparks of interest again, and help you rebuild the emotional connection that you need, without overwhelming yourself. Now, let me be clear, it's not about forcing gratitude or shaming yourself into some sort of passion. It's about creating the kind of safety that lets your desire come back naturally. Your brain learns to be okay with that. And so it's all tied to the GIVER method, because here's the thing: when you reconnect with your authentic desire, you don't just feel better. You're rediscovering the gifts that make life have meaning again, to where you can go out and make a connection. So once again, if as you're watching this resonates with you, go pick up a copy on Amazon, pick a copy of the GIVER method. The link is in the description. You can also check us out at thegivermethod.com, learn more about us, get some free resources, join the newsletter list. Now, some people are just tired of feeling numb and they want more of a personal support to get through something like that. Well, then I've opened up some of my 8-week coaching positions. Go check it out. Go learn about the coaching that we do. Like I said, within 8 weeks, you could have so much drastic improvement. So there's a link down below about coaching. Now, if you run a podcast, an event, a mastermind, whatever that may look like, a team thing that, you think that this sort of a message could serve your people, then I'd love to bring it to them. I'd love to bring it to your community in a way that's real and practical. So you'll see a link about speaking and podcasting. And of course, please hit subscribe, tap that bell for notifications. Don't want you to miss out on any of the content I put out all week long. Leave a comment along the way if anything jumps out to you, and like the video. All right, with that, let's dive in. I don't want to waste any more time. We're going to just start going through these ideas of how do we gently wake up the part of you that's been waiting for the permission to be alive again. And so the first principle that I want to cover and I want to talk about is it's all grounded in this idea of making it safe to feel again. Your system, let's talk about why your system went numb and then how we start to wake it back up. There's a lot of stuff we just framed up. Now, the most thing people never tell you is that if you're running in that survival mode, parenting nonstop, hustling into business, grinding through work, that numbness isn't proof that, something's wrong or broken. It's just it's your body being smart. When life gets overwhelming for too long, the nervous system flips the switch to we're going to conserve energy and we're just going to keep functional. It dials back things like joy, curiosity, passion, because right now it believes survival matters the most to your aliveness. The problem is that your system doesn't snap out of that when things calm down. It hangs on in this protective mode, and it often keeps you feeling stuck, burnt out, overwhelmed, anxious for even longer. That's why you can be out of the storm but still feel those emotions. Now here's where things start to shift for you, something to think about. Instead of beating yourself up for feeling numb, we gotta just get curious. Ask yourself, was my body protecting me from something? What could have been protected from in that moment, and what is there now that's in my way? Start just thinking about how your body is helping you, and that compassion starts to reframe your thoughts. Emotional safety means that your body trusts that it can feel something again, whether it's joy or sadness or desire, and that it won't knock you over or throw off everything else that it has going. Think of it slowly, I'm trying to get a really skittish animal to come out of hiding. You don't run at it yelling get out here, or run at the person who's trying to wake these things up and be be passionate. You create the conditions, calm conditions, you give invitations, and you let those things come out in their own time. And so here's what I want you to try. The first thing, do some numbness archaeology. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in our next principle, where you just grab a notebook, write down, when was the first, when did you first notice that you were going flat? What was happening? Was it work overload, family stress? Was it financial pressure? Name it, because when you name it, it helps to be okay, that's what the numbness has been protecting me from. It wasn't that there was something wrong or there was a failure, it was protection. And then, take maybe a safety signal inventory. Notice the times and places where you feel slightly more present. Maybe mornings with your coffee, maybe walking outside, maybe, talking to a certain friend. Those are little clues to where the system feels safer that you could start to lean into as a part of that. And of course, practice those tiny wins, for 30 seconds. Notice the sun hits your face, smell, the smell of your meal, the sound of your kids laughing. These aren't just mindfulness hacks. They're actually reps for your nervous system. Be see, it's okay. This is okay. Set gentle boundaries. While you're rebuilding, you can limit your exposure to stuff that spikes your stress. Avoid doom scrolling, news, heavy conversations, overcommitting to things socially. And then, speak permission out loud. Literally say to yourself, hey, it feels safe. I can, it's safe to feel again, right? Even in small amounts, or hey, what comes up? Whatever comes up, I can handle right now. And it might feel cheesy to say that out loud, but your nervous system listens when you give it permission, especially when you say those sort of things out loud. Here's the thing to take from that. Like, if you try to skip this step, you just try to force this passion back in, it will backfire. We just reinforce your system's belief that emotions are unsafe, but when you take the time to feel safe again, everything gets easier. Everything. So you're not just trying to feel good in the moment, you're building the foundation to stay alive and present, resilient, no matter what comes your way. So then the second principle or area that I want to focus on is I call it the 60-second window. So tiny permission slips, giving myself these permission slips to do this. The truth is, one of the scariest parts of coming back from numbness is the fear. Hey, if I start feeling again, I'm going to get overwhelmed, or it'll mean that I have to change my whole life right now. The fear alone keeps people stuck. But here's the trick. You don't have to open the floodgates. You just have to crack the window a little bit. These little cracks, they're little 60-second windows, simply giving yourself permission for, a short, safe moment where you want to feel something without pressure to act on it or to, keep it alive forever. After, think of it like your physical therapy. After you've gone through some sort of an injury, you don't just jump into a marathon. You test the muscle in tiny movements. Well, the same here. Keep these things short. Your nervous system learns that feelings have a start and an end. There are times where I'm happy, there's times where I'm not happy, there's times where I'm sad, and then I get over it. That's what makes it feel safe. And the magic is you separate the wanting from having to do something about it. You can want a quiet moment, a certain song, or even a vacation, but you don't have to rearrange your whole life to go after those sort of things. Just practice desire in safe and bite-sized ways. It retrains your system to believe that wanting something isn't dangerous. So think about those 60-second desire windows throughout your day. You can try this. 3 times a day, ask yourself, what's one tiny thing I might want right now? Maybe it's just the coffee to taste just right. Maybe it's a walk around the block. Maybe it's, to not be interrupted for 5 minutes. Whatever it is, don't judge it. Don't fix it. Just notice what those things are. You can set these gentle check-in alarms where, you have a phone reminder that says hey, how am I feeling right now? And maybe you just take 30 seconds and read it. Hey, on a scale of 1 to 3, how am I feeling? And then move on. There's no pressure to change. Just practice noticing these things. You can play safe with curiosity, something that, sparks even the smallest interest. Maybe there's a book title, a conversation, a color you like, whatever. Pause for a few seconds and let yourself sit with that small spark. And then let it go. No strings attached. I don't need to do anything about this. Think about those micro permission things that you can do. Give yourself a permission slip, and say it out loud. Hey, for the next 5 minutes, it's okay that I want to fill in the blank, connect, rest, laugh, whatever. Time limits make your nervous system relax because hey, I know we're not going to get into overload, overwhelm. I'm not going to derail my day because of this. And then try some emotional weather reports. Once a day, describe your mood like it was the weather forecast. Man, my mood is cloudy. It is sunny. It's foggy, it's stormy, it is bright and warm. It just makes it easier to notice without judgment, and it builds a language of feeling again that your brain starts to notice. Because forcing yourself to feel alive, it just adds more pressure. The pressure, is that's the type of stuff that got you shut down in the first place. So these sort of these 60-second, these windows, gentle windows, they prove little by little that, emotions are temporarily, they're just here for the moment. They're safe, they're manageable. There's tons of data out there that shows when they studied people that this kind of gradual exposure rebuilds tolerance way faster than trying to muscle your way through with willpower. And for you, parent who feels, guilty for wanting anything, entrepreneurs afraid that passion will pull them off course, the employee who's worried about rocking the boat, this approach just shows you your desire, the thing that you want, doesn't have to disrupt your life. It can actually re-energize you to live it more fully where you are right now. And that's going to take us to our the third principle or area, which is digging up those old sparks. Find the clues of what still lights you up. When you're in that numb state, the idea of finding some sort of a brand new passion feels impossible. Your brain's hey, I can't even pick what I want for dinner. How am I supposed to reinvent myself? What am I supposed to do here, right? That's why instead of forcing new passions, we go let's just go treasure hunting in our past. Or think about we're digging through the attic of our life. And there's old sparks hiding up there. Not for you to go recreate exactly the way that it once was, but for you to remember what made you special in the first place. What are the things that lit you up before? Maybe you were obsessed with Lego as a kid. I don't know if you can tell. That was me. I still am. What you love wasn't necessarily like, it's not the bricks, right? It's the creativity. It's bringing new ideas to life. It's the calmness of slowly working through something. Maybe sports lit you up. Maybe it was the teamwork, the competition, or moving your body. Like, those core ingredients often still matter. They just show up in your grown-up life differently. It's a different version that fits your life today that we need to go find. And the beauty is that you don't have to become someone completely new. You're simply reconnecting with a version of you that's just been buried in the survival mode. So it's less about like starting over and more about remembering who you already are. So here's some things that you can try. This is one of my favorite topics. The G in the GIVER method stands for your gifts, your superpowers. And so like digging these things up, these sparks, like this is one of my passions. So what you can do is like map your joy timeline. Draw a timeline of your life and circle the moments when you remember feeling alive. In your childhood years, teenage years, early career, like, it doesn't matter if it seems silly now, just look for patterns. What was it? Was it creativity? Was it connection? Was it adventure? Go find those things. Look for the patterns. Do your look at what your essence has been, for each spark, each thing. Like, what was it really about that lit me up? Like, it wasn't that, I just enjoyed sports. It's that I enjoyed the competition. I enjoyed the team atmosphere. Like, think of whatever that essence is. What was it? Learning? Was it freedom, community? Was it the challenge, the beauty, whatever? Write it down. Like, write down all the qualities you can think of, not just as an activity. And then think of like these gentle experiments you can try where it's like, what are the tiny versions of those old things? I loved reading. Well, I'm going to try a short story. I loved music. Well, throw on an old song that you used to move to. I love to travel. Like, well, walk the street, a new street in your neighborhood. Just get out, translate those interests, those things into like how it is today. If teaching lit you up, explain something to your kid or coworker. If adventure was your thing, your jam, then add small elements of novelty into your daily routine. The point isn't to chase the past; it's to let those whisper clues, whisper clues back into what actually matters now, and then like revive the curiosity. Notice even if small elements of those old sparks still stir something. It doesn't have to be the whole activity. Just catching these brief glimpses of the essence of it is enough to reawaken a desire. Because if you're stuck in any sort of numbness, your brain's telling you like, hey, I've never really had passions. Maybe I'm just who I am right now. It's not true. You've felt alive before, and those moments are proof of your capacity for joy. Like, it's still in there, right? It's still living within you. Like, we bounce back faster when we build what's already familiar instead of trying to force some sort of brand new role or identity on ourselves. And, for you, whether you're, an exhausted parent, a business owner, or, a business owner who's lost touch with their fire, or someone who's clocking in and out just to get by, this is a reminder that that who you are hasn't disappeared. It's just, it's been buried. You're not building everything from scratch. You're remembering, who you are. Remembering is the first step to feeling alive again. And then our fourth one, like, let your body call the shots, This is how you tell the difference between like the shoulds and the real wants that are out there. When you've been feeling numb, especially for a while, your head gets so loud with all the shoulds. I should want this job. I should be grateful. I should spend my time this sort of way. I should be blah, 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 fill in the blank. But deep down, your body is whispering the truth the whole time. Even when like your emotions feel shut off, your nervous system hasn't stopped talking. It just speaks in sensations instead of words. Now you think about it, when something fits you, your body usually feels lighter, more open, more energized. When something feels off, man, you feel tight, you feel heavy and drained before you even finish thinking about it. That's your built-in compass. And the good news is, like, you don't have to go figure out this old passion right now. You just need to practice listening to the signals that your body's already telling you. It's a powerful, this is super powerful, for parents who feel stuck in endless responsibilities and checklists, entrepreneurs who can't tell if they're chasing opportunity or just obligation, for the employee who's lost touch with what actually energizes them. Your body already knows. It's going to tell you. You just need to tune back into it. And so here's some ways that you can do that. Try there's the expansion versus contraction check. Before you say yes to something, pause. Does this, pause and ask yourself, does this make you breathe easier? Or does it make your chest feel heavy? Weird, that's going to give you a big answer. Track the energy shifts after different activities, a meeting, cooking dinner, the workout, whatever. Jot down how your body feels. Do I feel lighter, heavier, Do I feel more energized, less energized? Like, do I feel charged, wiped out? Like, look for the patterns in those types of activities, and then scan your options. If you have some time free, imagine yourself like, hey, if I had an hour free, what would I do? Would I be reading? Would I be cleaning? Would I be calling a friend? Like, whatever it is, like, whichever one feels expansive, right? Then which ones make you shrink inside? And then just go with the things that make you feel like you're going to be putting air in your lungs, like you're feeling good. And then test drive big decisions. If you think about taking on any sort of a new thing, a big new role, a project, close your eyes and picture yourself living it out. If your body feels tight or drained, then pay attention. If it feels alive, if it feels like light, exciting, like there's your green light. And then of course, always write these down. Journal out your signals. At the end of the day, note the people, the places, the tasks that left you feeling open versus shut down. And over time, you're going to rebuild trust that with this internal compass that's telling you things. You've probably been ignoring these body signals for years, pushing through, overriding the whispers of logic and with the whispers of the logic, the obligation, the checklist. That's how numbness takes root. But when you start listening again, like you rebuild trust with yourself. It really is that simple. People who practice like this sort of awareness, of listening to your body, you make more satisfying choices, and you experience less regret and anxiety over time. When you trust your body's signals, you just stop running your life on this autopilot and you start seeing like, I'm going to steer it now towards what actually fuels me. That's how you get back the parts of your life, like you get them back into alignment, instead of having some sort of exhaustion. That takes us to the fifth area, the fifth principle. Like there's this, like you have to build the curiosity bridge, the low pressure way to back to feeling alive. When you're numb, people are telling you to like go find your passion. If sometimes that's going to feel like a gut punch. Passions sound heavy. It sounds like pressure. And right now, pressure is the last thing that you need. So that's why curiosity is a perfect bridge. Curiosity is light. Your brain thinks of it as light. It's simple. It doesn't demand an overhaul to your life. It just whispers like, hey, I wonder what that's about. I don't have to commit to it. I don't have to know where it's going. I'm just going to notice it. And that noticing often is the first step towards waking back up. The beautiful thing about curiosity is it actually multiplies. The more you allow yourself little sparks of wonder, the more your nervous system relaxes and starts opening doors for bigger feelings. Before long, curiosity snowballs into interest, and interest into a growing passion. But the key is you don't force it. You just let your curiosity lead. And so here's what I want you to try. Like there's think about the first thing would be like a daily wander. I don't know if a better way of saying that. Like each day, jot down maybe 3 little things that caught your attention. It could be a shape of a cloud, a random thought, an interesting sound. Like no pressure to do anything about it. Just notice it. Think about the curiosity without commitment, where you explore without any sort of strings attached. If you're curious about cooking, watch a 5-minute recipe video. You don't have to go cook it. Just go watch it. If you're drawn to photography, scroll through some new photos. Give yourself permission to just dip in and out as needed. Think about like building your question collection. Anytime you find yourself wondering about something, like how something works, why people do what they do, or even like, what if I tried that? Write it down. Like there's no need to answer it right away. Just start building your list of natural wonderings, the things that I could consider out there of possibility. You could do some gentle and small investigation rituals where once a week you set aside maybe 5, 10, or 15 minutes to explore one thing on a curiosity list. Look it up, try it, simply observe it more deeply. Think of it as like a play date with your curiosity. And then have some good curiosity conversations. Share the spark, what sparked interest for you with someone. I've been wondering how they do that. I've been curious about trying this thing. Just say it out loud. So when you say it out loud, it helps you feel that spark more fully. It creates more of a connection of what that thing is to yourself, to your brain, that it feels more real. Curiosity is like your emotional lubricants. It loosens stuck gears without forcing any sort of a thing. Curiosity, it actually activates the same reward pathways in your brain as joy does. But without the intensity of feeling overwhelmed, when you're still in some sort of a recovery step. And here's the kicker. People who practice curiosity consistently regain emotional range way faster than those who sit around waiting for passion to magically appear. It's because curiosity is doable. It's safe. It helps you reconnect with what actually lights you up, not what you think should light you up. So if your passions feel out of reach, start there. Just be curious. Let that be your bridge. Because those tiny sparks of wonder, they're not random. They're the breadcrumbs leading you back to yourself. And that takes us to the final area I want to focus on. So it's how do we weave this in? What's the method to weave this back in? How to feel alive without blowing up your life? Reigniting the spark doesn't mean I have to burn everything down to start over. I don't have to move to some cabin in the woods or whatever to find myself. You don't need to quit your job, sell your house, pack up, whatever. You just need to learn how to weave those little sparks of aliveness back into your life that you've already built. Because if we're honest, you've got responsibilities. I mean, if you're watching this, and like I said, I can imagine you're a parent or an entrepreneur or working away within that organization or a combination of a lot of those, right? Your kids, bills, businesses, people depend on you. You can't just walk away from all that. But the good news is, the spark that you're looking for doesn't have to compete with any of those responsibilities. In fact, you just integrate it right where it is. It actually makes you better at showing up for the things that you're responsible for. That's this idea of weaving it in, finding ways to bring the curiosity, the creativity, the authentic desire right into the existing roles that you already have, instead of believing you have to choose between these things, between your responsibilities and these desires or authenticness. You start to live with both. And so here's what you could do. Think about your responsibility enhancement, as there's some trials or experiments you can do where you're going to bring these, rediscovered sparks into the roles you already play. If you love creativity, bring that into family dinners or into your problem solving at work. You love learning, approach that work progress with fresh curiosity. Do a values-based choices as you go. If you've got small, daily decisions to make, ask which option honors my responsibilities and is going to make me feel alive. Maybe I'm going to take the scenic route to the store, or choose to have a hard conversation in a way that honors your value of connection that you have. And then rebalancing your energy, shift even maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes at most of your day from a dead zone, a scrolling, a zoning out, a watching something, to something that lights you up. These tiny adjustments, they create huge returns in how alive you feel. Find your passions with that sort of a thing. You could do authentic role expressions where you infuse, who you really are into the roles you already have. If encouragement is your gift, bring that to your team, to your kids. If nature grounds you, schedule meetings as a walk. Plan outdoor family time. This is about your sustainable passion, how you architect that into your life. You build these simple rhythms to keep the spark alive long term. It might look like weekly rituals just for you, or joining a group that shares your interest, or carving out consistent space for the things that energize you the most. Because lasting change doesn't come from blowing your life up. It comes from weaving yourself back into the life that you already have. People who express their true desires, their authentic selves, in the responsibilities, the roles that you already have, typically are always reporting that they've got higher, satisfaction and fulfillment in life. Their resilience is higher than those who suppress themselves, because they're trying to be responsible. And here's the part that really matters. You don't have to choose between those. I don't have to choose between being that good parent or strong leader or the committed employee and feeling alive. I can weave those back into the fabrics of every part of my day. I can be more present and more energized and you can just be more you as a part of all that. And so listen, if you take nothing else away from today, remember this, that the numbness that you've been carrying is not proof of that you're passionless or that something's broken or wrong. It's just proof that your system is doing its job. Good job, system. You did what you were supposed to. You protected me when life got to be too much. And so the things that we walked through today, from the, emotional safety, weaving sparks back into our daily life, whatever it is, they're not quick hacks. They're a roadmap or a way to gently remind your nervous system that, hey, it's safe to do this again. It's safe to feel again. Here's what happens when you practice these sort of things. You stop fearing your emotions. You realize the emotions have been waiting for your permission to just come back alive. You remember that your passions, they don't just disappear. They hibernate in those times. And you can start noticing the tiny wants, the little sparks, and those subtle body clues that tell you hey, this matters. And over time, those sparks, they turn into something real, something that actually fuels you. It's not about ditching responsibilities or blowing up your life. It's about, proving to yourself that you can feel again. I want to feel from inside the life that I already have. That shifts you from surviving to engaging, and from a feeling flat to present. Don't mistake numbness for failure. It's not a character flaw, it's that protection. And the fact that you're even here listening tells me that you're ready to move from protection back into connection. And so I'll say this, the world doesn't need another parent, entrepreneur, employee just going through the motions, checked out on the inside. You are the only person that has your combination of gifts, superpowers, and experiences. You are the only person who can make the impact that you can make in the world. No one else can. The world needs you fully alive, bringing your gifts, your spark, and your presence. Now, if this hit home for you in any sort of way, you want to dive deeper, that would be the reason to go get your copy of the GIVER Method on Amazon. The link is in the description, or just go straight to Amazon and look up the GIVER Method by Jake Talbert. You can check us out, like I said, thegivermethod.com for more details. As a part of that, it'll give you a framework for reconnecting your gifts to your desires and living from a place of fulfillment, not obligation. If you're at the point where you want someone walking the road with you, then that's where you can check out the one-on-one coaching positions, or spots that we've opened up, and if that's you, hey, if you've thought, I need someone to guide me through this sort of a thing, check out the link on the coaching and description. If you've got a podcast, mastermind, team, event, a community where you think a message like this belongs, I'd love to bring it to those people in a way that's actually useful and very actionable. So check out that link on speaking and podcasting. But before you go, drop a comment. What was your biggest takeaway? I love seeing what lands for people. Of course, hit subscribe, tap that bell for notifications, like the video if you haven't already. I want to make sure that everything I put out there for you shows up so you can see it and it can make an impact in your lives. Because here's the truth: your capacity for having the desire isn't gone. It's been waiting to for you to create the safe space. It needs to come back alive. Passion doesn't need to be forced. It just needs to be welcomed back. And the version of you that you've been missing, they're already on the other side of those gentle steps, back toward what makes you feel alive. I hope that you take those things to heart. I hope we start finding those passions and you start living this more fulfilled life. I want to say thank you so much for taking the time, for hanging out with me today, watching the video, and we'll catch you in our next video. Have a great rest of your day.